Welcome to step 3. Finally, paint in detail.
What you want?
Now, before I really get into this thing, I'd really recommend taking this outside and shooting it with some kind of a primer, like spray paint Krylon or something like that. However, it's really cold outside. I want to get this thing done, so I'm not going to primer it. It's always better to primer this hot glue before you paint it. So my suggestion to you guys is get a good coat of primer on it first, and then come back and paint. As well, the open fresh clay like this really soaks up a lot of paint at first. So if you prime it, you don't have that problem, and your paint goes a lot further. One thing I want to note too, I did go ahead and notch this out because I found something kind of cool in my Christmas stuff that I'm going to use to light this up with. So I went ahead and added the notch, cleaned up this hole, and got all ready. Now we're going to paint. I didn't film this, did it with a Dremel. Didn't think you guys needed to see that being done. So let's get busy and start painting this thing. If any of you guys watch my other tutorials, you know that I do a base coat in a black paint, particularly a black exterior latex paint. This thing isn't going to go outside, so I'm not going to take all the steps to really water seal this like I would for a project outside. And as well, I'm not going to base this one in black. I'm going to base this in blue, just for the reason that we're going to do a dry brush of white over this and everything, the cracks and stuff that we see. I want a blue to shine through. I want it to have that kind of frozen look to it. So we're going to base this thing in blue. The nose will base in black, and the arms will wind up based in black. But for the main part of the body, we're going to use blue. Inside the mouth here, I do have an airbrush. An airbrush would be 1,000 times easier to spray in and get down in there. But however, for the purposes of the tutorial, as usual, I wanted to show those that don't have a airbrush, you can do it by hand. I'm not going to lie to you, it's a real pain in the rear to get back in there and get that painted around all those teeth, because I set so many teeth inside there. Just a real pain. So I suggest if you do have an airbrush or you got some aerosol cans, anything, use that to shoot back in there. It'll be much easier for you to get the paint back inside there. But again, if you don't have access to it, it can be done with a brush. It just takes time. And while that base coat dries, we'll go ahead and put a base coat of black on our hat here. The base coat dry up was about 4 or 5 minutes, especially this first layer, because that Mache really soaks it in. So now we're going to do a layer of white dry brush all over this thing. Okay, so really I have pretty much abandoned the dry brush technique and went more to a sloppier, wet, standard paint. I want this to really be about 90% white, but get some hints of this blue up underneath. Trying something new. I usually don't paint stuff like this, so we're going to see what happens. I will do more of a dry brush up here around the face, because all these wrinkles and crevices, I want that blue down in there to show up. If I don't come out real happy with it the way it's applied, then maybe I'll come back over and do a wash so that I get that blue back down inside all these wrinkles. We'll just see how it turns out. Alright, so while this dries up a little bit, we're going to go ahead and put a base coat of black on these hands and this nose here. Now that we got a good base coat of black on the arms and nose, we're going to go ahead and start off with the arms. I'm going to start off by dry brushing some brown straight over this. This is a darker brown, and then we'll probably come back and hit it with some lighter tones too. Maybe possibly add some more colors, I don't know. I thought about trying to do something to add where it looks like there's some frost on top of the arms and hands. We'll just see how that plays out. Here's our first layer of brown dry brush on. Hard to tell the camera, it looks pretty good here. Now all I did was add a little white to the palette to lighten it up. And I'm going to come back over this once again with this lighter brown and really concentrate on just hitting the outside edges really to kind of get this to get some definition and some pop to it. You can start to see the definition there. That almost looks too peachy, so I'm going to hit it with another color of brown. I think that hot glue does a good look for a gnarly looking vine. So we're going to leave those arms like that and move on to the nose. So for the carrot color, we're going to take a little bit of brown and a little bit of orange, make a dirty orange base at first. Then we're going to dry brush all over this, and we're going to come back with just some straighter orange and brighten it up some. I know it's kind of hard to tell. I let a lot of the brush marks show through, and I let a lot of that black still bleed through, just to give it this dirty old torn up, you know, just kind of a nasty looking carrot. Since there wasn't much texture here to work with, I'm just going to leave it alone right now. That looks pretty decent and it gets the point across, so we're going to leave it just like that. Alright, so we're going to move on now. We're going to go to the mouth, and I've really been debating this for the past few days, what color the mouth should be, because I mean this is the inside of a snowman. I don't really know. I thought blue back in here would be okay, because it would be like it's, you know, cold or whatever. But I think I'm going to go ahead and go back in the back side of this and paint that black. I think it'll have more of a punch that way. And then I'm thinking maybe I'm going to come in on the gum lines here and paint that a gray color. And then we'll do the teeth in white and maybe do them in white and maybe tip them off with another color. And then we'll cut these eyes out so we can light this thing up and do some touch-ups on the hat. Now we're going to put some gray up here on the gums. There we go. We've got the gray inside the mouth there and the gum line. I think it's going to look pretty good. We're going to come back in and paint all these white, but while this is drying, we're going to do a little of that gray dry brush on the hat just to add a little more color to it. So we'll do that right now while we wait for that to dry. Now I'm going to come back in and hit some browns and stuff on here and kind of dirty it up just a little bit more. Alright, that's dirtied up quite a little bit. Got a kind of a antique look to it. Sitting on top of our snowman, it looks pretty decent. And now we're very carefully going to paint all of our teeth white. Now just to keep this gray in here from being just such a solid gray and give it more of that, I don't know, snowy, icy feel, I'm going to take this soft tip brush and I'm going to lightly kind of just stipple in white all over that to get, you can kind of see right here to get this effect in here. And we're going to use the same brush and the same effect. We're going to use some of the gray back on top of these little coal pieces here. Just to add a little touch of color and life to those as well. Now one of the last things I'm going to do, I'm going to come back with this original blue that we based this all in. I'm going to thin this out with some water, and then I'm going to come back in all these little ridges and hit this with this watered down blue paint just to kind of pick up these lines again. Alright, so what I've done so far is really taken that watered down blue and come back in and then just hit all these lower areas in here around the bottom of the jaw here. We added a little bit of color in around the side of the face there, and I'm going to go ahead and hit in between the two balls here, get some blue in there. We're going to come in and hit inside right around there, maybe just a couple highlights around these edges, and I'll do the same around these arms. And by doing that, I think that gives us a little bit more separation between the whites. It just adds a little more detail, and that'll be pretty much it, I believe, on our paint. Let's get these eyes cut out of here, get that done, and then we'll finish up, put the hat on. I think I'm going to put a little band around the hat, glue it on, and we'll put our light in. We'll be finished up. Want to make sure you try and get everything out of there. You don't want any paper back in there. You don't want that getting on the light, getting hot, and causing a fire. So do everything you can to make sure you get all that out of there. Paintwork's all done. We're pretty much finished up. We got to glue our hat on. But before we do that, we're going to make a little band to wrap around this. Let's start making this band. So to do the band, I've got this old nasty sock really, and I'm going to cut this sock up and use that material to wrap around. You know, we want a rotted, old looking band wrapped around there anyway. We don't want it looking nice and pretty, so we'll do this. So my sock isn't quite long enough to wrap all the way around, which is fine. It doesn't need to be this tall anyway. This band needs to be, you know, small. So I'll cut it in two sections, glue it together. It'll look kind of ratty, but that's all right. That's what we're going for. I'm going to take a little watered down brown here and just grunge these up just a little bit more than what they already are. And we're simply just going to glue the band into place. I put the one on, since we're doing this with two different bands, I put the one on that wraps around the back on first. That way when we wrap this one that goes around the front, if you see a seam here, it'll be towards the back side of the snowman and not so obvious. As I'm pulling this thing around, I'm really pulling it pretty tight to really kind of stretch it and thin it out. We're adding just a little hot glue right here to the very end. That way we can kind of push the glue in and smooth it to the next. You need to be careful because you Glue is really hot. And you can burn it. Burn your fingers, but we get that smoothed in pretty good. Got a little adjustment to make here, so we can pull this down. Get that blended into the other band. There we go. It's nice and ratty. I kind of cut into it and chopped it up a little bit on the tops and bottom sides. I wasn't real careful about the cuts. That way it looked old and worn. So I'm not going to just use hot glue to glue the hat down with. I'm afraid that it'll pop off later because we're going onto a glued surface. So I'm going to use, I got this liquid fusion. This is a pretty good glue. But I'm going to run the liquid fusion around this, and then I am going to put a couple dots of hot glue on here just to tack it into place the way it holds into place while this glue sets up and dries. There we go. He's all finished up. Alright, so as far as lighting goes, I'm lighting this guy up. This little tea light does not have enough power to really send through and get these eyes to glow. I've got basically it's a Christmas decoration. It's a candle that you would set in your window, and you put a little light flicker bulb in it, and it looks like a candle. I'm going to use that, and it's going to set up on the inside here. And of course, I notched it out for the cord to come through. That way, it will set flat and it'll light up just fine. However, if you don't have access to that, because not everybody does, and you don't want to go out and buy one, if you got a little pin light like this, or maybe some small LEDs or anything else, you can set inside here and it'll light it up just as well. But I'm just going to show you using this little pin light. I'm going to set it in here, we'll shut the lights off, and we'll see how the eyes glow. The eyes are glowing red pretty good. Painting that on the inside really shows up pretty decent. Let's shut some more lights out and see what it looks like. Yeah, see, that definitely has a nice glow to it. It looks mean, looks menacing. Get some shadow on that. Yeah, shows up nice. It looks mean, the eyes are red. It looks evil. Well, that's going to do it. That's pretty decent. I like the way that looks. Alright, so here we go. Our little twisted evil snowman is all done. The project really wasn't that bad. It's pretty easy to do. Just a few steps, armature clay, and then arms and nose and a lighting source, and it turns out pretty decent. Hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. I hope you guys maybe learned something through these few steps. If you guys really like these types of tutorials, give this a big thumbs up. Share it to everybody you know. Get it out there. Leave comments below what you like, what you didn't like. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comment section. I'll answer them for you. And as always, keep making something from nothing.